What do we say? Let's attend our keynote presentation. I would like to introduce our distinguished keynote speaker, Dr. Himdad Abdul-Qahar, to deliver a keynote presentation. But before that, I would like to tell you a few words about him. Dr. Himdad is an assistant professor at Salahuddin University. He is the dean of the College of Basic Education. He has been teaching at the university since 1998, so he has 18 years of teaching experience. He teaches at all levels, both at bachelor's, master's and PhD levels. In addition to being a teacher, he's a researcher, he's an established author and a very capable translator. He has 6 published books, 17 published and presented academic papers in international and national journals, conferences and symposiums across the world, including Malaysia, Italy, India, the UK, the USA. He's been to the Emirates, Turkey and Iraq. He's a well-traveled man. He has more than 50 articles in both English and Kurdish. Some of his selected work experiences are: he was the chair of the KELTPN, the Kurdistan English Language Teachers Professional Network. He has been editor-in-chief of the Sako Journal. He is an editing board member of the Kurdish Academy Journal. He is editor-in-chief of Kozan magazine. He is editor in the Kurdish Globe. He's a reviewer of the Dubai 2016 conference, a member of IA-TEFL, and a member of the European Linguistics Association. Again, I would like to introduce Dr. Himdad Abdul-Qahar. Thank you very much. Yes, speak close to the microphone.
Thank you very much. The pretty long introduction. He said a few words, but it was too much for me. Thank you. As you can see, the title of my presentation would be Active Learning and Teaching, Challenges and Tips for Teachers. We have all been teachers. I have the great honor to present in front of some of my teachers who taught me at the undergraduate studies and maybe masters and PhD. So it gives me a great pleasure and honor to be presenting in front of them. On the contrary, it gives me another pleasure to see my students again who have graduated and have become teachers either at this university or at Salahuddin University, again at both levels of masters and PhD. As the theme of the conference, this year conference, if you look at the logos and the posters, you see it is Breaking Traditions, Active Learning. That's why this keynote speech is entitled Active Learning and Teaching, Challenges and Tips for Teachers. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it's working or not. Yeah, I'm lucky now. We will be talking about several things together. What is active learning, when to use it, and why to use it. Active learning techniques and strategies. I know there is a difference between the two. Barriers of active learning or for implementing active learning in our teaching circumstances. Solutions for these barriers, tools and ways for student engagement, and 8-minute lecture at the end. If we have time, we'll talk about it, and then final recommendations and tips. And there are very good resources, not only references, resources also are put in the slides, and then I can give the slides, and I have already given the slides to the organizing committee so that they can share it with you. And question and answers at the end, even though in keynote speeches there is very little question and answer, but we will see if we have time. The first thing to do is presentation protocol, because the title is Active Learning, so I think I will be moving and you have to be moving with me. You have to be active with me. It's not one way. That's why we are doing these conferences, and that's why I am preparing this keynote speech. Active learning. So active is not only from my part, it should be from your part too. So excuse me if I sometimes ask you to stand up and then to talk to your the person next to you or the person behind you, but it's about learning in general. Okay? Did we agree on that? Okay. So for all participants should be active. And that's what we need in our teachings, in our classrooms also. So we need to have a signal for talk and a signal for stop. I think I will not use that. In classrooms, you can use music, you can use any tool, any sound signal to tell them, okay, it is time to talk, and now it is time to be back to me, stop talking. But we will not be using that here. I just want you, now it's time, your time to talk. Okay? So, the first thing to start is, I want you to think of these questions. We were all teachers. You have all gone through the same system. Are your teachers satisfied? Yeah, students. Are your students satisfied with what you teach them? Are they bored?
Actually, there's
Are they bored? Sorry. Are the students satisfied? There's a mistake in the spelling. Okay. Are they bored? Or do they learn? And do they understand? Just think of that. And my next question to you, which would be your time to talk for 1 minute, is for a minute or two, think about a lecture that has always stayed with you. Think back. You have seen many teachers at different stages of education, many lectures. Okay, now it's time for you to talk to your neighbor about a lecture that has stayed in your mind, a lecture that you will not forget, a teacher that you will not forget, because later on there will be some follow-up questions. Okay, you can talk now, please. Okay, thank you very much. I hope that you had some good memories and you recalled some good memories of your best teachers in your education career. I know there is no time to share all that with me, but I wanted you to know why. Now, you have someone in mind, you have a lecture in mind, right? Someone that you will not forget, something that you have learned. But the question to ask is, what did you learn in that particular lesson? Why do you remember it? Why it stayed with you? Why you remember it? Sure, there should be a reason, and the reason could be the content of what you have learned in that particular lecture, or the style that you have understood with it, the content and the style. So if an average learner here in this system takes around 18 years to go to university, and then +4 or +6, this will be a very long journey. But why do you remember only some of them? Definitely there was something different. The techniques used, the content, the style, which was suitable for your learning style also. That's why it is very important when we teach, we think of these things. What do students learn? And try to make them remember you in one way or another. In one way or another. There are very famous quotes about learning and what should we do actually. Sophocles in the 5th century says, "One must learn by doing the thing. For though you think you know it, you have no certainty until you try." This is very important. Most of our problems is that students, while they sit in the class, they understand everything while they are in the class. But when they go out, they remember very little. And then with the passage of time, this would be decreased. So doing things with learning, or learning by doing, is the best method. Confucius also has a very famous quote that I thought it would be relevant here. "I hear and I forget. I see and I remember. I do and I understand." So the more the senses are involved, the more it stays with us. The more the senses. Hearing, Okay, you will forget. C, you may remember, or you remember. Do something, action, then for sure you will understand. And that's our aim in teaching. What is our aim in teaching? To make our students understand what's going on, or a process. Okay, these are some photos just for refreshment from my college. So people learn in different settings. According to the latest researches, we human beings spend 14% of our time in school, 14%, 53% at home and community, and 33% asleep. Wow. That's according to the latest researches. But I'm talking about the latest part, 53%. Why shouldn't we bring what home is and community activities to class also, or to make use of them for teaching? Because everything should not be taught at school, because it is only 14% of the majority of life outside the school. So you have to have some outside activities to support your learning and your teaching. Your learning and your teaching. According to the latest, again in 2015, attention span statistics, they say that human beings' nature, after 10 minutes, the retaining of information decreases. After 10 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes, this is called the average attention span. You will lose focus, and you will you find difficulty in remembering, in recalling, in retaining everything. So we have to do something about that. Our lectures are either 45, 50 minutes long, one run, or double classes of around 100 or 90 minutes long, again one run. We have to think about that, keep this in mind while you plan your lessons, while you teach that human beings, students included also, after 8-10 minutes, they need a refreshment. They need a summarizing of what has gone before, just to make sure that they understood, make sure that they can remember. So keep that in mind again, because we may come back to it later on. The learning pyramid, just look at if what we do unfortunately in most of the universities is mostly lecturing. Mostly. I don't talk about exceptional teachers, exceptional departments. Lecturing. So when it is only reading, so only 10% could be remembered. Audiovisual, 20%. When there is demonstration, then 30%. When there is discussion, there is 50%. When there is practice doing, then 75%. And then when you teach others, then it would be 90%. So it is very good also to take this or keep this in mind while you are teaching. Make students teach each other, because this will keep 90% of the information in their mind. 90% will stay if they teach others. Okay, so again, it's not 7 minutes, 8 minutes yet, but I want you to think with me. Think with me, because I'm not here teaching you, I'm just helping, or I'm just sharing my humble information with you, okay? So think with me, please. Who is your ideal teacher? Or who is an ideal teacher? We have to break this question down into 3 pieces. From learner's perspective, if you are a learner, so who is your ideal teacher? How do you want your teacher to be? If you are a teacher or a colleague, how do you want a teacher to be? We are colleagues in the same department. How do I want my colleague to be? And then from administrative point of view, how do administratives, heads of departments, deans, presidents of universities, vice presidents, how do they want their teachers to be? From punctuality to participation in different activities, committees, and so on. So this is very important. One of the problems that we face, as I said, I'm sure there are many long experienced teachers or long experienced teachers here. One of the problems we all face is that how can we keep students focused right from the beginning of the year until the end, or right from the beginning at the lecture until the end. This is a very challenging task for teachers. We have to think of this, and I think keeping in mind the fact that average attention span is 8 to 10 minutes will be very helpful here. And one important thing is how to turn teaching into learning. Teaching into learning. Unfortunately, what we do, most of us, most of the time, is teaching. We don't care about, that's unfortunate, we don't care about whether students have learned or not. We just say we did our part and it is on them, which is unfortunately, and sorry to say that, it is wrong, because we have to be after learning, not after teaching. Okay, so why do we need active learning? Because our students lose focus very soon, and because based on the exams and based on the other assessments, we feel that there is very little learning going on in our classes. And the reason and the evidence is that when they graduate, either they go to another job because they didn't learn a lot. They passed the years with success, but they didn't learn a lot. That's why the reason why we need active learning is to do that, to keep that. We said that audience attention is lectures starts decrease after 10 to 20 minutes. So I have to be aware of my time because of your attention also. I want to grasp your attention also to my speech. So we have to add some activities or some parts of it so that it stays. After 10 minutes, everything will change. You listen to me for 10 minutes with focus, okay. But if I talk more than that, then you start losing focus. You start going away, searching for busying yourself with a paper, with a mobile phone, sending a text or something, okay? So as a teacher, we all have to do something with it. That's why we need active learning. All genuine learning is active, not passive. Everything that is genuine and that's pure learning should be active, not passive. And students only remember what they understand. They don't remember what you have written for them if they didn't understand. They may remember it for a day, for a couple of days, for a week, but what for the end of the year? What for life? They will not remember it because they didn't understand. Look, sleeping. Did you have sleeping students in your class? I'm sure, maybe at the back seat, at the back row, even if they are not sleeping, they are not with you. They are busy texting. A couple of days ago, when I was just searching for preparing this, I came across something, a funny story. A student was complaining about long lectures. You know why? Because he said, I tried chats and the lecture didn't finish. I wrote a poem and it didn't finish. I said a joke to my next student and it didn't finish. What shall I do? He was asking for recommendations. Imagine that long lessons would be boring without breaks, without activity learning techniques, strategies, and activities. Otherwise, they will sleep. Okay, the question is when to use it. When? At the beginning of the lecture, at the beginning of the year, or at the end? No, everything should not be at the beginning. Maybe after the introduction of a new material, when you introduce your new material, the lesson, then you have to think of it. You have 8 to 10 minutes for presenting your material at the beginning. And then it is time for active learning. Active learning strategies, we will talk about them. But this is the right time. Why do we need active learning? We said to enhance learning, to incorporate learning styles, different learning styles, and to improve comprehension. After the introduction of the new material, then we have to think of something to enhance their learning, to incorporate learning styles, as you have different teachers, different students in your class that learn differently or they have different learning styles, and to improve their comprehension. Now, we have to know what is the difference between active and passive learning. We say active, but what is the difference? And then judge your class, whether it is active or passive after that. Active learning is an instructional approach in which the students engage with the material. The students engage with the material in one way or another. There is no way. They should be engaged, otherwise you are doing nothing. While passive learning is a traditional instructional style that involves teachers lecturing and students taking notes. I'll stop here. Involves teachers lecturing and students taking notes. How many teachers have this one, the last line? Teachers lecturing and students taking notes. Don't be shy, it is okay. I'm sure, not majority, but a great number of classes is going on like the second one. Teachers lecturing and students taking notes. Unfortunately, this is passive. This is what they lose most of the information after the class, after the 10 minutes have passed. So, while active learning is to engage students with the material. And I think passive learning is, again, to recall, we see that the students are just recipients. They just receive. They record and absorb knowledge. That's how we think in passive learning class, While in active, and it is related to behaviorist view, while in active learning, the knowledge and the learning is actively constructed by the learner himself or herself. It's not just the recipient, it is constructed. It is constructed out of this experience. I think there are many other definitions of active learning, but I will not take much time of your time by defining active learning. There are some good definitions. You can take a minute and read it. I don't know whether at the back you can see it or not, but anything that involves student in doing things and thinking about the things they are doing, this is called active learning. Another definition, anything that is course related and all the students in a class session are called upon to do other than lecturing or other than simply watching, listening and taking notes. And the last definition would be a teaching method that supports learning. What is good about active learning? Why it is good? First, it can be short. It can be short as short as a minute or two. This is a good point. This is a privilege that it does not need to be an hour long. It does not need to be a class period long. It could be short. And it can be integrated in any class, at any discipline, in any department, for all the departments, in all classroom settings. Maybe you ask, even in large classes? Yes, even in large classes, it is possible to integrate active learning activities. These are the good points about that. But these good points are not without barriers, without obstacles. There are obstacles also. But the good points is that it could be as short as few minutes. It can be integrated in any class, in any discipline, in any topic, and even in large classes it is possible. What are the famous strategies active learning strategies that teachers can use. We have simple ones up to complex strategies based on the level of your students and based on the content and the nature of your discipline and the lesson. Okay? It could be a 1-minute paper. You know what is a 1-minute paper? I mean, you ask students to write a question, a kind of a research question, and then later on you may ask them to answer it also when you start explaining the material. A pause for reflection. Sometimes teachers need to pause so that students reflect on what they have heard, whether they understood or not. Large group discussion. There could be large group discussion in classes. Self-assessment. For example, you have asked something to be written for you, and then you give it back to them to review it or to assess it. How much, for example, if I asked you to write something, not now, in my classes, okay, write a short story or a short paragraph about something, then I say, okay, assess it yourself. How much do you give to yourself out of 10 for this one? Informal groups. There might be groups, informal groups, either outside or inside the class. Think, pair, share. This is a very good technique. You ask them to think individually, and then pair it together, and then share it with others. Group evaluation. Sometimes you give them a paper to evaluate all together in groups. Peer review. You give an assignment to your students, and then you exchange the assignments with each other. Role playing. This is very good. Role playing, a very good technique, but it gets more complex now. Okay? And then brainstorming, and then case studies, and active review, and site visits sometimes is a very good active learning strategy, and forum theater also, when students can act like as if they are in a court or in any official situation. These are the strategies. These are some of the strategies. It is not all. There are many, many others. But you can, I'm sure, either you have used all many of them, or you can from now on use them in your classes. And at the end of the presentation, I will give you an assignment for next year maybe, when you come back to this conference. Okay. Active learning, we know that students have different learning styles. They are not. In a class, in a typical class in this region is around 40 to 50 students in the same class, but all the students are not learning in the same way. Each one has its own learning style. So a teacher should be addressing these differences. For each learner, we may need a strategy. For example, for visual learners who need mind maps and concept mapping, maybe PowerPoint presentation and maybe 1-minute paper would be very useful. Not role playing, for example. For auditory learners, maybe review groups, brainstorming, summary, making summary, students to student teaching, and interview would be better. For kinesthetic learners, skills demonstrational games, student response systems, and many others. So a teacher should know the learning style of his students and then decide on which strategy is suitable for that class of students. I know I'm running out of time. There are barriers also. Look, if you want to achieve active learning, then you have ways. I have taken this and adapted the picture to apply for this one. The teacher is trying to arrive at active learning, but he has several obstacles on its way. What are the obstacles? What are the barriers? Course content. With active learning, be aware, if you don't plan well, you cannot cover all the material, or you cannot cover a lot from the course material. It needs a lot of pre-class preparation. Large classes is an obstacle, but you can overcome it. Teacher resistance, because it needs a lot of pre-class preparation, that's why you will face resistance with the teachers. A teacher is not ready to put his time for preparation. He says, okay, I'm teaching and I'm the master of the class and I'm free. And lack of material and equipment. Sometimes some strategies need material specifically designed for these activities, and sometimes equipment also. And sometimes student resistance. Because you are asking them to be active, you are asking them to do things, you may also face student resistance. So course content coverage, pre-class preparation, large classes, teacher resistance, lack of material and equipment, student resistance are all the barriers that we face. What suggested solutions? I will be very quick because I've been warned once. I have a yellow card now, and I deserve to. So, course content, what should we do about it? I think we said 53% is outside. The life, 53% at home and community. So we have to have some activities outside the class to use that time. And we have to have some pre-class reading assignments. For example, for next, I know you have to give them in advance what would be this class about so that they read, and then you devote the time for activity in that one. And sometimes a video can do something good for you. What you can explain in 10 minutes, a video can do in 2 minutes. In 2 minutes. If we have time, I'll show you a video also. And pre-class quizzes. Sometimes you give the questions before the class so that in the class they search for the answers. Okay, they search for the answer. This is only for this challenge, course content. But for large classes and for classroom arrangements, try to make your classroom dynamic. There should be movement with it. Okay? Do practically anything other than lecture. Just don't lecture. Just do it practically, and I will skip the others because the dynamic classrooms are there. Look at the way we sit in the class. That's what we do in our classes, or most of our classes. The teacher is in the front and the students are sat there, and this is not good for active learning. Maybe it is only good for grasping attention of the audience to listen to the teacher. This is another way. Maybe the teacher is moving somewhere and the students are in group, but this is also not very good. Maybe it's suitable for some group discussions. And this one is good for grasping all the attentions, suitable for whole class meeting discussion. And this one, when students are seated, they have to turn back, and unfortunately most of our classes are fixed chairs, so we cannot move them into that. Success in active learning, and as I said, I have to skip. We have to have some learning objectives at the beginning, and then use multiple pedagogies, not only one style, based on the learning styles, and leverage, if you have capacity, to digital and analog tools into your class, and increase access between teacher and student. This is very important, the last point. The student should be available to reach the teacher at some point, either online, virtual school, virtual class, or in-person, face-to-face. There are many tools. Actually, we don't have time for that. So, incorporate movement, maybe it would be final tips after this. Incorporate movement into your class. Try to make your students move, please. Yourself, I'm not moving because of the mic, please. Okay? Otherwise, I will be moving. But you have to move in your, pick up the pace, try to know where to slow down, where to go quick, and then frequent and effective feedback, give feedback to your students, and many other activities. And I think this is the last point. Connect with their concerns. Know your students. What are their concerns? What are they interested at? These pictures are from my college, kindergarten department. Students, girls at the university level, they are ready to change themselves into animals because their concerns, they were concerned about teaching kids at kindergarten school, at kindergartens, okay? I think now it is time for the red card. Add passion to your teaching and be ready to get tired. Support your students, build learning communities and groups. For example, we have English club at the English department so that we maintain access between teachers and students. Okay, success story, I didn't have time for that, but you will have these slides with the conference organizing committees. Final tips, and that's it. Study hall redesigns, that would be for universities and ministries, not for teachers. We need class size reconsideration. We need technology integration. We need continuous in-service teacher training and curriculum redesign also to accommodate for activities. And teaching excellence incentives. Now, unfortunately, there is no difference between active and passive teachers incentive. That's why they don't try. And maybe nationwide active learning campaign is needed at this stage. A nationwide active learning campaign is needed. And these are the references, and after that the resources also with their links so that you can go directly to it. It is there online. You can access it and then it would be very helpful for you. Final activity, we will not do it, but final assignment. Your assignment for next year conference is see if you can apply active learning in your teaching and share your experiences with a larger audience next year. Thank you very much for your attention.